The wine glass tips in slow motion, burgundy liquid arcing toward Jade's lap like a crimson accusation. She doesn't move, has learned not to flinch when her stepsister performs cruelty for an audience. The private dining room in Seoul's most exclusive restaurant holds its collective breath. 12 witnesses. 12 people who'll pretend they saw nothing. Oh, clumsy me. Min Seo's voice drips false sweetness. But I suppose we can't expect refinement from the help. 72 hours earlier, the hospital cafeteria smells like industrial disinfectant and defeat. Jade Williams counts coins on the metal table, her nurse's scrubs still damp from a 12-hour shift in the ER. 3,001. Not enough for dinner in the subway home. She pockets the money, decides walking 6 miles is fine. She's done worse. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. Miss Williams? This is Attorney Park. Regarding your father's estate. Her father, dead 3 months from a heart attack in Busan, leaving debts that swallowed his restaurant, his apartment, everything. Leaving Jade alone in Korea with a nursing degree from a program she can't afford to finish. There's been a development. Attorney Park continues. Your father had a life insurance policy. 300 million won. Jade's vision tunnels. That's enough to finish school. Pay rent for a year. Brief. However, the beneficiary is listed as his wife, your stepmother. Mrs. Choi is claiming the full amount. My stepmother divorced him 2 years ago. She has no legal. In Korea, divorce doesn't automatically change beneficiary status unless explicitly updated. I'm sorry, Miss Williams. Without proof your father intended to change it, the money goes to her. Jade sits very still in the fluorescent silence. Of course her father never updated anything. Of course Min Seo's mother finds a way to take the last thing that could have saved her. There's one other matter. Attorney Park says carefully. Mrs. Choi has invited you to dinner. Saturday. She says she wants to discuss a possible settlement. Hope flickers, dangerous and painful. She'll settle. She's willing to talk. The restaurant is Magumwa in Gangnam. 8 p.m. Jade hangs up, allows herself 30 seconds to imagine. Tuition paid. No more counting coins, finishing her degree, maybe even sending money back to her grandmother in Atlanta. Then she lets the hope die? Experience taught her. People like Mrs. Choi and Min Seo don't suddenly grow generous. But she'll go. She'll listen. She's survived worse humiliations. Saturday arrives cold and sharp. Jade borrows a dress from her roommate. Simple black, presentable. She takes the subway to Gangnam, exits into a neighborhood where even the air feels expensive. Magumwa sits behind an unmarked door, the kind of place you need connections just to know exists. Inside, a hostess guides her through corridors of polished wood and paper screens. Private dining rooms line both sides. Jade catches glimpses through sliding doors. Businessmen, celebrities, people who belong in places like this. She doesn't belong. The hostess opens a door. The room overlooks Seoul's glittering skyline, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city like a painting. A low table stretches across expensive tatami mats. And sitting there, already served champagne in crystal glasses, her stepmother, Mrs. Choi, dripping designer labels. Min Seo, her stepsister, wearing diamonds that could pay Jade's rent for 5 years. And Jade's breath catches. The man at the head of the table is perhaps 30, devastatingly handsome in the way of Korean actors, his black suit clearly bespoke. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that assess her with unreadable intensity. His presence fills the room like gravity. Jade, you came. Min Seo's enthusiasm is poisonous. We weren't sure you'd make it all the way to Gangnam. Sit. They've left a cushion at the table's foot. The servant's position. Jade sits, spine straight. This is Kang Ji-hoon, Mrs. Choi says, her Korean crisp and condescending. She knows Jade speaks it fluently. Jade's mother was Korean American, but uses it like a weapon anyway. My daughter's fiancé. The handsome man inclines his head slightly. Doesn't smile. His eyes haven't left Jade's face. Ji-hoon owns half of Seoul. Min Seo continues, switching to English for Jade's supposed benefit. Import-export. Shipping. Real estate. We're getting married next spring. Congratulations, Jade says quietly. We wanted you here because… Mrs. Choi pauses dramatically. We've decided to be generous. We'll give you 10 million won from your father's insurance. As a gift. 10 million out of 300 million. 3%. That's very kind. Jade says, voice neutral. But the policy was my father's. He would have wanted. Your father wanted many things. Mrs. Choi's smile sharpens. He wanted to be successful. He wanted respect. Instead, he died broke and alone because he wasted resources on a daughter who couldn't even be bothered to visit him. The lie lands like a slap. Jade visited every week. Held his hand through the chemo that didn't work. Mother, don't be harsh. Min Seo's fake gentleness is worse. Jade did her best. It's not her fault she takes after her side of the family. Limited potential. Ji-hoon hasn't spoken. Hasn't moved. But Jade sees his knuckles whiten slightly around the champagne glass. 10 million won, Mrs. Choi repeats. Take it, or we contest everything. Drag you through courts you can't afford. Your choice. The room waits. Through the windows, Seoul glitters with indifferent beauty. I'd like to think about it, Jade says. Of course you would. Min Seo reaches for her wine glass, and that's when it happens. The deliberate tip. The crimson cascade aimed at Jade's borrowed dress. Jade doesn't flinch. The wine soaks her lap, ice cold. Oh, clumsy me. But I suppose we can't expect refinement from the help. And then Ji-hoon moves. Ji-hoon sets his champagne glass down with surgical precision. The sound, barely audible, somehow silences the room. Excuse me, he says in Korean, his voice dangerously soft. What did you just call her? Min Seo blinks, confidence flickering. I was just joking, Ji-hoon. She knows I didn't mean. You called my guest the help. He stands, and Jade realizes he's taller than she thought, presence expanding to fill the space. In my restaurant. At my table. The temperature drops 20 degrees. Your restaurant. Mrs. Choi smile strains. Darling, I think there's been Magamwa. I own it. Did you think I chose this location randomly? Ji-hoon's gaze cuts to Min Seo. When you requested a private room, I assumed you wanted to make amends with Miss Williams. I see I was mistaken. Min Seo's face drains of color. You know her. We've met. Ji-hoon pulls out his phone, types something rapid. Once. Briefly. She made an impression. Jade has no idea what he's talking about. She's never seen this man before in her life. Ji-hoon, whatever she told you. Mrs. Choi starts. She told me nothing. I make it my business to know things. Another text. For example, I know about the insurance policy. 300 million won. I know Mr. Williams visited a lawyer 2 weeks before his death, explicitly stating he wanted to change the beneficiary to his daughter. The paperwork was never filed because he died before the appointment. Silence crashes like a wave. That's... How could you possibly? Mrs. Choi's composure cracks. I also know about the 20 million won Mrs. Choi embezzled from Mr. Williams' restaurant accounts over 3 years. The falsified receipts. The shell company. Ji-hoon's tone remains conversational, pleasant even. Should I continue? Jade's heart hammers. None of this makes sense. Why does this stranger know her father's business? Why does he care? Min Seo reaches for Ji-hoon's arm. Baby, let's talk privately. He steps away from her touch like it burns. Don't. The rejection is so cold, so absolute, that Min Seo actually staggers. We're engaged, she whispers. No. Ji-hoon's phone buzzes. He glances at it, something almost like satisfaction crossing his features. You told people we were engaged. I never confirmed it. In fact, he turns to Jade. Miss Williams, would you mind standing? Confused, Jade rises. Wine drips from her dress onto the expensive tatami. Ji-hoon shrugs off his suit jacket and drapes it around her shoulders. The silk is warm from his body, smells like cedar and something darker. His hands linger on her shoulders for just a moment. 3 years ago, he says, still close enough that she feels his words, I was in a hospital, waiting while they saved my brother's life after a car accident. I was covered in his blood, terrified, alone, and a nursing student, American, Korean face, kindest eyes I'd ever seen, brought me coffee, sat with me, didn't ask questions, just stayed. Jade's memory stutters. 3 years ago, Seoul National University Hospital. She was doing clinical rotations. There was a man in the surgical waiting room, expensive clothes soaked in blood, looking utterly shattered. She brought him terrible vending machine coffee and sat with him for 2 hours. You told me your brother would be fine. Ji-hoon continues. That the surgeons were the best. You held my hand while I fell apart. Do you remember? I remember, Jade whispers. Your brother lived. He lived? Ji-hoon steps back, addresses the room. I asked her name. She said it didn't matter. Left before I could thank her. I've been looking for her ever since. That's insane, Min Seo snaps. You don't base business decisions on some random encounter. I don't base business decisions on anything random. Ji-hoon's smile is razor sharp. I'm very deliberate. For instance, when you approached me at a charity gala 6 months ago, I investigated your family thoroughly. Discovered Miss Williams existed. Discovered what you'd done to her. And I decided to get close enough to destroy you. The words land like bombs. Mrs. Choi stands, shaking. You can't. We have contracts. Contracts you sign with shell companies I control. Ji-hoon gestures to the door, where 2 men in dark suits have materialized. My attorneys are filing criminal charges for embezzlement. The insurance company has been notified of the fraud. And the settlement you mentioned? He laughs, cold and cutting. You'll be settling with prosecutors. Ji-hoon, please. Min Seo's voice breaks. I love you. We can fix this. Just tell me what you want. I want you to understand something. He turns to her, and Jade sees something absolutely merciless in his expression. You stood in my restaurant and humiliated a woman who showed me kindness when I was broken. You called her the help. You threw wine on her like she was nothing. And you did it because you've never in your life faced consequences. He nods to the suited man. Escort them out. Mrs. Choi, your accounts are frozen. Min Seo, your credit cards are canceled. You have 24 hours to vacate the apartment I was paying for before realizing what you were. You bastard. Mrs. Choi lunges. The bodyguards intercept smoothly. Within seconds, both women are being guided firmly toward the exit. Min Seo's protests echo down the corridor, fading. Then silence. Jade stands frozen, Ji-hoon's jacket around her shoulders, her mind racing. I don't understand, she finally says. You destroyed your fiancé's family because of one kind gesture 3 years ago. She was never my fiancé. She was a target. Ji-hoon moves to the window, stares out at Seoul. I run what people politely call import-export. What I actually run is the largest information network in Korea. When I want to destroy someone, I learn everything. When I learned about you, what they'd done, what you'd survived, I decided they'd pay for it. That's crazy. Probably. He turns back. I'm not a good man, Miss Williams. I've done terrible things. But you sat with me when I was terrified, and you asked for nothing. In my world, that kind of kindness is revolutionary. Jade's head spins. The insurance money will be transferred to you within 48 hours. Plus damages for emotional distress. My lawyers are very persuasive. I can't accept. You can. You will. He crosses back to her, stops at a careful distance. Unless you're planning to refuse out of pride, which I'd respect but advise against. She meets his dark eyes. Sees intensity there, yes. Danger, absolutely. But also something unexpectedly vulnerable. Why are you really doing this? Jade asks. Ji-hoon is quiet for a long moment. Because you're the only person in 3 years who made me feel human. And because I wanted to see if you'd remember me. I remember. You were terrified your brother would die. Taeyong. He's fine now. Annoying as ever. A ghost of a real smile. He's the reason I'm not completely lost to this life. And you're the reason he's alive. You kept me sane enough to make decisions that night. The doctors kept him alive. You kept me alive. Ji-hoon's voice drops. Do you have any idea what it's like in my world? Everyone wants something. Everyone's calculating angles. Then you appeared, brought me terrible coffee, and just cared. For no reason. Jade's throat tightens. It wasn't for no reason. You look like you needed someone. See that? That's why I spent 3 years looking. He gestures to the table. Sit. Please. Let me explain properly. They sit, this time side by side rather than at opposite ends. A server appears, removes the wine-stained cushion, brings water and warm towels. Jade cleans her hands, buys time to think. I don't know you, she says carefully. And you're talking about criminal enterprises and destroying families. This isn't. I'm just a nursing student trying to survive. I know. That's why I'm telling you everything up front. Ji-hoon's hands rest on the table, steady and scarred. I'm Kang Ji-hoon. My family controls territory from Busan to Seoul. We move information, provide protection, operate in spaces the law doesn't reach. I've hurt people. I'll hurt more. This is what I am. Then why tell me? Because I want you to choose. His gaze holds hers. Here's what I'm offering. The insurance money, plus 300 million won from my personal accounts. Enough to finish school anywhere in the world. Enough to never worry again. You take it and go. I'll make sure no one from your stepfamily ever bothers you. We part ways. You owe me nothing. Jade's pulse quickens. And the alternative? You stay in Seoul. Let me know you properly. See if what I felt 3 years ago was real or just desperation. He pauses. I'll be honest, it's dangerous. My world has enemies. Anyone close to me becomes a target. But I've spent 3 years imagining conversations with the woman who showed me kindness. I'd like to have them for real. This is insane. Completely. He almost smiles. But you asked for honesty. That's what this is. I engineered this entire dinner to rescue you and ruin them. I've been planning it for months. I'm probably obsessed. Definitely dangerous. But I'm giving you the choice I'd want. All the information, no pressure, total freedom. Outside, Seoul pulses with light. Jade thinks about the last 3 years. The exhaustion. The loneliness. The constant calculation of whether she can afford soap this week. The weight of being perpetually unwanted. You don't even know if you like me, she points out. I know you're kind. I know you're resilient. You survive them without becoming cruel. I know you have terrible taste in coffee. His expression softens. And I know that when you held my hand 3 years ago, it was the first time in a decade someone touched me without wanting something. I wanted you to feel less alone. Exactly. Ji-hoon shifts slightly closer. Here's what I'm asking. Have dinner with me. Real dinner, not this disaster. Let me take you somewhere quiet. We talk. You ask me anything. Afterward, you decide. Take the money and run, or see where this goes. Jade should say no. Should take the money and disappear. This man is dangerous, connected to crime, offering her a life she doesn't understand. But she thinks about sitting in that hospital. The blood on his clothes. How his hand shook in hers. How she'd wanted, desperately, to make the terror easier. One dinner, she says. You answer every question. Complete honesty. Deal. He stands, offers his hand. There's a Pojamika 3 blocks from here. Best tteokbokki in Seoul. Owner's a friend. We can talk without performance. A street cart? You're a crime lord who owns fancy restaurants, and you want street food. I'm a crime lord who spent 3 years looking for a woman who brought me vending machine coffee. I'm full of contradictions. He's still holding out his hand. Trust me, just for tonight. Jade takes his hand. The Pojamika is exactly as promised. Plastic stools, steaming pots, the smell of gochugaru and comfort. The owner greets Ji-hoon with familiar warmth. Doesn't ask about the wine-stained dress or the expensive jacket. Just serves them food and disappears. They talk for 4 hours. Ji-hoon tells her everything. His family's history, the empire built on information and protection, the careful balance between legal businesses and shadow operations. His brother's accident that nearly killed him. The loneliness of being feared but never known. Jade tells him about her childhood in Atlanta, her mother's death from cancer, moving to Korea for a nursing program she could barely afford, her father's remarriage to a woman who saw her as competition, the slow erosion of belonging. Why nursing? Ji-hoon asks, refilling her soju glass. Because when my mom was dying, the nurses were the ones who saw her as human. The doctors came and went. The nurses stayed, held her hand, made her laugh. Jade stares into her glass. I wanted to be that for someone. You were. For me. I sat with you for 2 hours. You have no idea what those 2 hours meant. His voice is rough. I was 27, running an empire. Terrified I'd lose the only person who knew me before the power. And you just stayed. Didn't judge the blood. Didn't ask questions. Just human kindness. That's not special. That's basic decency. In my world, basic decency is revolutionary. They argue about it, gently, while Seoul moves around them. Jade learns he's funny, self-aware about his flaws, fiercely protective of his younger brother. Ji-hoon learns she's stubborn, refuses to accept compliments, dreams of opening a clinic for immigrant workers who can't afford care. I could fund that, he says. The clinic? No. Why not? Because I need to build something myself. Not have it handed to me. She meets his eyes. I appreciate everything you did tonight. But I'm not a charity project. You think that's what this is? I think you're used to solving problems with money and power. I'm not a problem to solve. Ji-hoon leans back, studying her. You're right. I apologize. He pauses. But if you built the clinic yourself and needed investors, hypothetically, would you consider me then? Hypothetically? Maybe. She almost smiles. If I trusted your motives. How do I earn that trust? Time. Honesty. Showing me you see me as a person, not a symbol of your humanity. Fair. He signals for the check. It's late. Let me drive you home. I can take the subway. You can. But I'd spend all night worrying. Humor me. The drive back to her tiny apartment in Itaewon is quiet, comfortable. Ji-hoon doesn't push, doesn't ask to come up, just walks her to the door. Thank you, Jade says. For tonight. For everything. Thank you for giving me a chance to explain. He hesitates. Can I see you again? No pressure. Coffee maybe. Somewhere public. Why do you want to? Because you challenge me. Because you're the first person in years who doesn't fear me or want to use me. Because I want to know if this feeling is real. He meets her eyes. And because you deserve someone who sees your worth. Jade thinks about Min Seo's cruelty, her stepmother's greed, the years of being told she wasn't enough. Coffee, she agrees. Saturday. That place in Hongdae you mentioned. His smile transforms his face. Saturday. I'll text you details. She watches him drive away, then goes inside. The apartment is silent, cramped, hers. She thinks about the insurance money coming, the choices ahead, the dangerous, honest man who looked for her for 3 years. Her phone buzzes. A text from Ji-hoon. Thank you for remembering me. Sleep well. Jade smiles. 6 months later, she's finishing her nursing degree, funded by the insurance settlement and legitimate damages from Mrs. Choi's prosecution. Min Seo is in Japan, disgraced and divorced from a brief marriage to someone equally awful. Mrs. Choi is serving 2 years for embezzlement. And Jade is sitting in a cafe in Gangnam, reviewing clinic proposals with Ji-hoon, whose investments are carefully structured through legitimate businesses. They're not together, not yet, but they have coffee every week. Long conversations. Slowly building something real. This location could work, Ji-hoon says, pointing to a building near the university. Rent's reasonable. Close to immigrant communities. You're really okay with me doing this independently? I'm really okay with you being exactly who you are. He closes the folder. Though I reserve the right to be your first investor once you're ready. Noted. She studies him. You know, 6 months ago, I thought you were insane. 6 months ago, I was insane. Obsessed stranger who destroyed your family at dinner. They destroyed themselves. You just expedited consequences. Jade smiles. I'm glad you found me. Even if the method was dramatic. I don't do subtle. I've noticed. They talk until the cafe closes, then walk through Gangnam's bright streets. Ji-hoon's world is still dangerous, complicated, morally gray. But he's never lied to her. Never pretended to be something he's not. And Jade has learned that kindness, real, unconditional kindness, has power she never imagined. Power to save a broken man in a hospital. Power to inspire 3 years of searching. Power to build something honest in a world of shadows. Same time next week? Ji-hoon asks at the subway entrance. Same time, Jade confirms. He watches until she's safely on the train, then disappears into the Seoul night. And Jade rides home, thinking about the clinic she'll build, the life she's crafting, and the dangerous man who saw her worth when her own family couldn't. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming exactly who you were meant to be. Sometimes kindness echoes for years. And sometimes, the person you save ends up saving you right back.